Hello everyone, I'm Fozzie or Cam, and I'm here as always with my co-host Will. How you doing today, Will?
I'm doing great, Cam. How about you?
I'm doing fantastic. We've got a great agenda today. We both have finished Cobra Kai,
Yeah,
season 6, chapter 2 or part 2 or whatever. But that's not
yeah,
what we're talking about today. We're saving that for next week. It's probably going to be an entire episode dedicated to it. Today is just kind of a catch-up day for us, essentially. And we got a lot of stuff to catch up on because there have been a lot of trailers that have dropped, a lot of albums that have dropped that I really want to talk about. Yeah, I also want to talk about something briefly at the beginning of the podcast. We're both big fans of Bruce Springsteen here on the Everything Podcast. Obviously, if you
yeah.
watched the show before, he probably gets a mention every other episode at least. But he recently had a tour documentary, documenting this newest tour he's been on with the E Street Band. That just dropped on Hulu called Road Diary, and I guess actually it was a little more layered than just the surface level tour documentary because we got some background information on everything. Um, I was really impressed with that documentary. I was did not expect to see Clarence Clemens appear in it as an interview. I was really happy that they were able to do that, and it worked really well. It was cool to see his perspective on touring and stuff. It was awesome to see, to be honest. Um, the main draw for me to this was just seeing how Bruce and the E Street Band prepare for the tour, because when you go to the E Street Band concert, you go out there and like, oh, they must not even have to practice. It's so smooth. It's like they know exactly what they're doing. No, they practice quite a bit, and it's hard practice. I mean, you saw Max Weinberg talking about him having to ice his hands after everything, right? And so yeah, I mean, it was really cool to see them prepare and how Bruce just makes them keep going and keep going. And I was also just made aware from that documentary how big of a role Steve Van Zandt has in the preparation for the concerts, which I didn't know, and that even gives me more respect for him. So yeah, props to both of them, and yeah, it was really an interesting documentary. What were your thoughts on Road Diary, Will?
Yeah, I mean, I found it interesting that Bruce did not just the Road Diary documentary, but the George Stephanopoulos ABC special, Bruce Springsteen Backstage and Backstreets. I guess is kind of an appetizer to the main meal that was the Road Diary doc. And I thought the ABC special was good and solid, but nothing beyond what you would expect a 1 hour
It was
ABC
surface level,
TV
right? My
special to
parents
be.
watched it.
Exactly, yeah. But the Road Diary documentary, I thought, did its job. I think, as you said, Cam, it was trying to give you a look into all of the preparation behind what makes Bruce Springsteen's world tours be successful, and also to give you a look not just into Bruce, but into the entire E Street Band and get to know all the people in the band who aren't Bruce, because Bruce is the lead singer and he's the one you're paying attention to the most during the shows. But there's a lot of people in that band who make the incredible, well-oiled machine of the Street Band work well. So it was nice to get a look into just the whole process of how they plan for the tours, get to spend some time with people in the Street Band who weren't Bruce Springsteen. And I mean, in terms of things that have come out about Bruce Springsteen that are in like like about like 2.5 hour or so range. Things like live in New York City, live in Barcelona, live in Dublin, live in Hyde Park, Springsteen on Broadway. In terms of like feature length Springsteen releases, it's like those are like elite cream of the crop for me. So I wouldn't put it on the level of things like that because those I think are epic, but I definitely liked this documentary, and I think it did a good job for sure of showing, all that goes into these world tours being put out there for people to see. And also, I thought it did its job of making, us as Springsteen fans be able to get to know not just Bruce, but all the other people in the band who are equally as pivotal to their world tours being a success.
Yeah, yeah. I was happy all the bandmates got pretty much everyone got their chance to speak. I was a little worried at first that Jake Clemens wasn't gonna get the recognition he deserves, obviously, but they waited for him to appear till later in the documentary. But I was worried for a little bit that they were gonna stiff Jake, but they didn't. We had a lot more to cover though today, such as I just want to get this quick because this is more of a me thing than a both of us thing. But two of my favorite artists,
Yeah.
and two of the biggest artists in hip hop right now, have just dropped albums, and I don't we haven't talked about we haven't talked about any of them, either of them. Yeah. So first off, I want to start with Tyler the Creator, who I'm obviously a big fan of. He's right behind me. I'm a huge fan of Tyler, and he out of the blue announced album dropping on a Monday at 9 a.m. Who drops an album on a Monday at 9 a.m.? No one does that. Not even Kendrick did that. So I was like, he announced it a week before it was actually going to drop, and leading up to it, he dropped the announcement video with a snippet of a song. He then proceeded to the day after, I'm pretty sure, the day after he officially announced it, released the cover art, and dropped the single, the only single from the album, called Noid, which upon first listen, I was like, oh, this is gonna be my favorite song on the album. But after the album was released, I was like, oh, it's like my fifth favorite song, because that's just how tremendous the album was. And so as the days would go on leading up to the release, we'd get more information. We get another snippet and a music video for the song Thought I Was Dead. And then like the day after, Tyler the Creator makes this shocking announcement. No features. Which, if you're not aware, in the hip hop industry, people featuring on albums is a really big thing. Like it's like it's part of the album listening experience. And a lot of times, upon releasing in the streaming era of music, the artists are able to hide the features, so you don't see who's featured right away. So that first listen, you have no clue who's about to be on this song. So for example, when Future and Metro Boomin dropped the song Like That, no one knew Kendrick Lamar was gonna be on that song. No one knew that. But when he was, people lost their minds. So features are obviously a big part. So people were really concerned when Tyler the Creator said no features. So then we get to Monday, and there are features on the album. A little fake out there. I don't know what the point of that was, but whatever. But this album was just it was a masterpiece. Chromacopia by Tyler the Creator was a masterpiece. The concept was brilliant. I think it's Tyler the Creator's most mature album. I think this just adds to the progression of him as a rapper. If you just look at his trajectory, start at the album Goblin and go to Chromacopia, he changes so much. His personality, his style, it just changes like crazy. And on this album, he's making every instrumental you're hearing is produced and arranged completely by him, which, I mean, maybe for people who aren't familiar with the hip-hop industry might sound, yeah, obviously they're making their own music, but no, not everyone makes their own beats. People have ideas that contribute to it, but that's not what some people do. Some people are there because they're lyricists, and the thing about Tyler the Creator is he's both. He's a performer, he's a lyricist, he arranges his own music, and that's really impressive. And the features on the album, like I mentioned, were fantastic. Specifically, some of my favorites were Daniel Caesar's contributions to the record. Glorilla, I thought was amazing, who I've actually been listening to more of her stuff recently because of this album and how much I loved her feature on the song Sticky. And finally, my third favorite feature, I guess, was probably Schoolboy Q on Thought I Was Dead. He was just phenomenal. He's just obviously a legendary rapper. He's also been a big collaborator with Kendrick Lamar. Kendrick Lamar, on Friday, which is a little bit more normal. Albums drop on Fridays. Except his album dropped at like 1 p.m. in like the middle of the day. I was in chemistry, and I was like, oh, Kendrick Lamar just dropped an album. It was insane. I mean, two of these albums of this caliber, two of my favorite artists of all time within a month or
Yeah.
so is just ridiculous. Cornucopia for me is a 9 out of 10. You know what else is a 9 out of 10? This new Kendrick Lamar album, GNX. I was so shocked. I figured he was going to drop something. He's headlining the Super Bowl. He's had a big year. I figured out after the Super Bowl it's going to gear up to a record, which is going to gear up to a tour. No, he's just going to drop right now. Because why not? He can do whatever he wants. So now he has the #1 album on the Billboard charts without any promotion, anything. Because this was a completely surprise drop. No one knew he was dropping. And there he goes. He released the album GNX. There wasn't a mediocre song on the album. And the thing is, it was a completely different album for him. If you're familiar with Kendrick Lamar's discography, then you know a lot of his albums are more concept focused. There's usually one big overarching theme to his albums. I feel like the theme for my favorite Kendrick Lamar album, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, the big theme for that album is maturity, I guess. But this, he says it in the first song, Whacked Out Murals, the first song. He says there's no double entendres. He wants you to feel what he's saying. Everything that Kendrick Lamar is saying on this album, you can take at surface level. Which you could hear me say that and think that's a bad thing. You want to be able to analyze lyrics. No, you don't. You can still dissect these lyrics, but they're way easier to take at face value. What he says is what he means. Usually his lyrics, I'm gonna go back and reference Mr. Morale again, are steeped in metaphors and double entendres, different meanings for multiple meanings for each lyric. No, not on this album. And like I said, that could sound like a bad thing, but it's not. It adds to the vibe of the album. It creates a sharper, harder album, so you know what he's getting at. You know what he's getting at right from the jump. And every song sounds good. And I'm not saying there aren't deep cuts on this album. There are songs on this album that are just as deep as anything else he's released. But there are also bangers on this album, which are more banging than anything he's released. Which is why not give this album a 10 out of 10? Why not? I don't. It's not recency bias. There's not a bad song on the album, not a poorly produced song on the album. Every song is beautifully mixed. There's all the features are great. The only thing I could knock points off is some of the West Coast references that he's making. Obviously, don't apply to me, so I can't exactly relate to things like that.
Yeah.
But that's because that's fine. That's just me. It's my personal experience. Just because that doesn't align doesn't knock points off the album for me, at least. Maybe for other people it will. But I can't find anything bad to say. The worst song is an 8 out of 10, and I still constantly re-listen to it. And I can't even say that for the Tyler album, which I love, like I just said. There's nothing bad you can say about GNX by Kendrick Lamar. It did everything perfectly. The runtime, 12 songs, 45 minutes, that's perfect album length. So yeah, I was super impressed by this album. Even more impressed than I was with Chromacopia, and that is saying something.
Yeah.
So yeah, GNX gets a 10 out of 10 for me. My favorite song off it, if anyone was wondering, is Luther, which is a phenomenal song featuring SZA. And I don't know, I probably, I think my other favorite song is probably Reincarnated, which actually samples a Tupac beat, which is really cool and a really awesome West Coast thing to do, you know. So yeah, both albums were fantastic. But that's me. That's you guys should listen to them if you haven't already. But let's get back into the subjects we can both discuss. Well, I'll let you take this one because I've been talking for a while. But we both were able to see Venom: The Last Dance.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So when I watched the Venom movies, the original Venom from 2018 and 2021's Venom Let There Be Carnage, when I watched them for the first time, I enjoyed them. It's not like I thought they were anything near Avengers Endgame level, but I enjoyed them for what they were. I thought they were good, fun movies. But as time went on, and I started to kind of mature in my movie taste and watch films like The Holdovers, which I wouldn't have been into at a younger age, but I'm into now. I was just like, maybe I overrated these Venom films a bit. Maybe they're not as good as I thought they were. The trailers came out for Venom: The Last Dance, and they just weren't really hooking me that much. So I was like, okay, I'll go see this film. See how they finish the trilogy. But it's not like I had super high expectations, and it's not like I think this is anywhere near an elite, I guess, anti-hero movie. Like, it's not like I think it's like anywhere near like Avengers Endgame or Iron Man or any of the elite Marvel stuff, but I enjoyed this film more than I thought I would. I do not think it is a perfect movie by any stretch of the imagination, but I thought it had many endearing moments throughout it because they had me hooked on the Eddie Brock Venom relationship. There is just something that is really endearing about the two of them that I just couldn't take my eyes off of, and I give Tom Hardy credit for that with his performance. So by no means do I think the Venom trilogy is elite superhero or anti-hero stuff, but I think it's kind of a hidden gem, amongst all of the Marvel stuff. And I don't think Venom: The Last Dance is perfect by any stretch, but I enjoyed it definitely more than I thought I would, and I got to give it credit for that because what you want from a movie is to walk out of it feeling satisfied, and Venom: The Last Dance made me walk out of the theater feeling satisfied, and I just have to tip my cap to it for that.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I was just obviously it's not the type of movie that you're obviously gonna be going into expecting the greatest movie of all time or anything. But I mean, knowing that, you go in and it's just a movie you're supposed to have fun with. I ended up really enjoying it. The only thing I could critique was the stupid song use of "Memories" by Maroon 5 at the end. That made me so mad. That song hasn't been relevant for years, and they chose that. But that in itself, if I felt like on the outside, oh, I was taking itself way too seriously. But kind of looking at it a little more, I was like, they knew that was funny. They knew that was a stupid song choice. So I think Tom Hardy and the writers here, they're self-aware. They know that this whole concept of Eddie Brock and the symbiote is just silly, frankly, and they're really embracing it. And they've been actually, I think these last two Venom movies have embraced it more than the first. Um, the more comical, silly aspects of this character or of these characters has been used more, which I think is actually was the way to go, just because of how wacky the whole thing is. And I was really impressed by this movie. All the characters, actually, most of the characters I enjoyed. My main complaint with this movie, every time it would cut to the stupid military base, I almost fell asleep. That was so boring. I didn't care about any of that. I just wanted to see Venom and Eddie, buddy comedy. That would have been, if it was just that the whole movie. I get they needed to have that because it just made the final act so much better. But that was my only actual complaint for this movie. Other than that, I really enjoyed it. You know what else I enjoyed, Will?
What's that?
I enjoyed the new Marvel trailers that we've got.
Oh yeah.
Specifically, the trailer for Thunderbolts, or the first look, I guess. I feel like
Yeah.
you watched it, right? I feel like that
I did,
first
yeah.
segment, that first clip, I feel like that was the first look. And then
Yeah, it was a
after
good
that,
like
I
three
think
minutes long, I'd say.
yeah, I think after that it cuts to like the actual trailer that they're gonna show. Um, but that was just a weird way to release a trailer. I've never seen a movie do that. Just release a first look. That means they're gonna have like three trailers out eventually, which is I don't care, but it's just weird. Um, but I was so impressed by the Thunderbolts. I cannot wait for this movie. Will, it's looking to be probably my most anticipated Marvel movie, and that's saying something because it was my least at one point, and now I'm really looking forward to all the characters look compelling, even the ones like John Walker who weren't necessarily well. Actually, John Walker was a bad example. Even characters like Ghost, who are not very compelling in their own movies, look like they have real character arcs and real purposes in this one, which is really exciting to see because I think they deserve it because they just were kind of done dirty in their own films. So I'm excited to see what they do with these characters, and I'm excited to see how the returning characters like Yelena, Red Guardian, and Bucky act, and John Walker act, that we all really like. So it'll be a fun movie for sure, and it looks like it's going to have a decent amount of depth to it too, which I'm really excited to see. Uh, Introducing the new characters, Bob, who's going to be Sentry. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this movie, and I know Will. If correct me if I'm wrong, but you were a huge fan of the original teaser trailer, right?
I wasn't, no.
So I'm really interested. What were your thoughts on this trailer?
Yeah, I would say this movie is still in the gotta see it to believe it category for me, just because there are characters that I'm compelled by. Like I'm compelled by the Winter Soldier character, and I'm compelled by Florence Pugh's character, and I enjoyed David Harbour's character in the Black Widow movie. But there are other characters, from the film who I just, didn't really, care much for or find, that memorable in the past, and now they're going to put them, here into this Thunderbolts movie, and just compared to the Captain America Brave New World trailers have just hooked me much more just in terms of their writing and characters so far than Thunderbolts. So maybe it'll prove me wrong. I hope that it does. But this movie is still in prove it to me category. And a large part of that is they're going to have to sell me on some of the characters in it who I just didn't find that memorable in the past.
Is that also how you feel about the Captain America trailer?
No, I feel much more strongly about that. Like that one just hooked me more. But like, do you want to finish talking about Thunderbolts, or do you want to get into that one?
We can just go. We can bounce back and forth. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on Captain America because for me, that did less for me than Thunderbolts did. To be honest,
Uh-huh.
I just wasn't compelled by the story. Really, I thought the whole General Ross. I just wasn't that. I mean, obviously, I'm still excited about it, but I just wasn't as drawn into it as I was with Thunderbolts. I think the characters are far less interesting. I mean, but then again, that could just be me. I might. I should probably rewatch the trailer just to get a second dose. I've only watched it like twice, but yeah. I mean, thinking about it, the action looks good. The CGI looks terrible. And the story looks like something I could get behind, but I don't know. I think it needs to do a little bit more to convince me it's going to be good. And there have also been test screenings of this movie that have been pretty poorly reviewed, which
Okay.
is kind of a turnoff for me because obviously, why would I want to see a movie that's poorly reviewed? Um, and also, it's had a bunch of reshoots, and as we know, I mean, look at Marvel's track history. Reshoots have never really been Marvel's bread and butter. It hasn't usually turned out to be something good. Um, I feel like if Multiverse of Madness didn't have the reshoots that it did, it would have became a far better movie. And that's saying something because I really enjoyed it. But yeah, reshoots in Marvel, I feel like, tend to just mess it up a little bit. And the story gets a little messy and it just doesn't work out. But what do you think? What's your main grievance with the Thunderbolts? What's the main thing keeping you away from really enjoying it?
From really enjoying it, I would just say there's like something about the dialogue and the interaction between the characters that I'm just not buying too much so far. Like the scene where they're Florence Pugh and David Harbour, they're in that car, and then the Winter Soldier comes up behind them. Like I feel like that scene was just like they were going for comedy in that scene, and it just didn't hook me like it should have. So I guess I'm just not like buying the writing a ton so far, I guess. And in terms of the Captain America Brave New World trailer, I did not think the second trailer was as good as the first trailer. The first trailer, I definitely think is the better one between those two. But it's not like I think Captain America Brave New World will be this great movie. I mean, in terms of the first trailer, which I really enjoyed, I'm still of the mindset if I've been down this route before, where Marvel will come out with a great trailer, doesn't mean that the movie's going to be great. So I keep that in mind with all Marvel movies for now. That being said, Captain America: Brave New World, I like the kind of gritty political thriller feel to it.
Very reminiscent of Winter Soldier.
In Captain America: The Winter Soldier, I think did that very successfully. So I like how it's pulling on the same themes from that movie. So I mean, I didn't think the second Captain America: Brave New World trailer was as good as the first one, but the Winter Soldier, the Captain America: The Winter Soldier elements of it are what are still drawing me to that more than Thunderbolts, at least so far.
Yeah, I do see what you mean, and I know from Marvel, and I guess movies in general, you've kind of had an issue, which is understandable. I see where you're coming from. You've kind of had an issue with comedy in these situations that should be taken seriously, which I get to a point, but I think there comes a certain point, especially with the Marvel movies, where you just kind of have to accept it. Because, I mean, I'm not saying with every movie. And I think it would work for Marvel if it was at least consistent. If every Marvel movie from the jump was uniquely, it was funny in its own unique way, and it was consistently funny. Guardians of the Galaxy, consistently funny. Thor, not consistently funny. All the humor's bouncing around, mashing and mumbling together. Then you have, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a... Thor: The Dark World isn't a particularly funny movie. It's not trying to be a funny movie. So it's just meh. It's just this blob of a movie. This stupid... I'm getting a little too mad now. This waste of space of a movie. And it just... Things like that tend to happen when they don't have good humor to live it up. So I think for Marvel, what I'm trying to get at here is, for Marvel, I think you just need to embrace the fact that it's a little bit more outlandish, like the humor. I think it's possible. If this were Jason Bourne and he started cracking these silly jokes all the time, it would be different, because that's more gritty, that's more real. And I think the main reason that not everyone buys into the Marvel humor is because there have been Marvel projects which were gritty and didn't have humor.
Right.
So some people, I mean, I guess yourself included, kind of expect that. Whereas some people like me are fine with bouncing between.
Sure.
I think Marvel would have a lot less, I mean, it's too late now, but I think Marvel would have a lot less backlash on the humor and grittiness aspect if they just picked a side and stuck to it, but still found a way to make each entry unique. I'll say a lot of things about the old DCEU universe. At least the tone of Zack Snyder's universe was consistent. And that's not something that you can really say for the Marvel universe. So I think once you kind of embrace that the Marvel universe is a little more silly, they're able to make these jokes in these intense situations, then I think you can start to enjoy it more. And you might not want to do that, and that makes complete sense to me. Why would you suspend your, I don't know, belief? Why? I'm not suspending my belief. Why would I do that? You should be catering to me. The movie should be catering to me. I shouldn't have to lower my expectations or change it for it. And that's an argument for a different day. That's just a whole other thing we could get into. But that's my standpoint. That's why I'm able to enjoy these more comedic. That's why I enjoy Ant-Man 2015. That's why I love the Deadpool movies, and I mean, everyone loves Guardians, but that's why I love the Guardians movies, you know?
Right.
So I think once you accept it, it starts to be like, okay, I get it, you know, this is fun.
Sure.
But then again, that's just me.
Yeah. And
So
I'm not saying I can't, fall for it if it's well done. Like
yeah,
the
like James
Guardians
Gunn's
movies,
Guardians, yeah,
exactly. Yeah, the Guardians movies do it really well. Thor Ragnarok does it really well. So if well done, I can be okay with it.
yeah, I definitely see what you mean. Um, but overall, actually, we'll include Fantastic Four into this question. Well,
Yeah.
overall, for these big three of MCU projects, Captain America,
Yeah.
Thunderbolts, and Fantastic Four, which we haven't gotten a trailer for, but we've heard enough about, we've seen enough sneak peeks for, whether it be at what D23 or whatever that event was, that big event that everything got dropped at. Out of those three, minus Thunderbolts, but for you, what is your number one most anticipated Marvel movie of the three movies that are going to be released within months of each other, which is insane? What is your favorite or
Yeah,
most anticipated?
I would say it's Captain America: Brave New World so far,
Really?
just because Thunderbolts hasn't hooked me so far, and Fantastic Four. I'm somebody who like hasn't like seen like the prior Fantastic Four movies or read
Yeah.
comic books with those characters, so I'll be meeting those characters for the first time. So if a trailer comes out and it's really good, that could shift my
Yeah.
expectations. But at least for now, I'll say Captain America: Brave New World.
All right, a respectable take coming from Will over here. Mine's Thunderbolts, just because I'm the most interested in seeing how it goes. I think it has the highest ceiling of all of these big three, and I don't want to get too excited. I'm gonna get kind of excited. There are a lot of summer blockbuster movies this year. I'm pretty sure. I guess Thunderbolts, Superman. The Superman movie's gonna be dropping in July,
And
and
also, if I
Fantastic Four.
remember correctly, yeah, like because they just can't let this dinosaur franchise go. Jurassic World Rebirth has to be coming out next summer too. Even though Dominion had a seemingly like fitting end. Nope, we're not done yet.
I wonder if that movie's gonna be good.
Hmm.
Yeah, I feel like there's not a universe out there where Jurassic World Rebirth is a good movie. What is it? Reborn? Rebirth?
Yeah, Rebirth. Yeah.
I want to watch it. It's gonna be so bad. It's gonna be a terrible movie. I don't know why
Yeah,
Scarlett Johansson would agree to be in it.
I will watch it just because I think the dinosaur concept is an interesting concept.
Of
But
course.
do I expect it to be good? No, I am going
No.
in with significantly low expectations for that movie. And to compare it to another franchise that's coming out with another movie next year, Karate Kid with Karate Kid Legends, I would say I think they could have I would say Jurassic World Rebirth is a better title than Karate Kid Legends. I feel they could have come up with a lot more of a creative title than that. And I don't think Karate Kid Legends will be this great movie either. I'm going in with very low expectations for that too. But I would say it's at least more compelling from the standpoint of Jackie Chan and Ralph Macchio. We've seen their characters before, and there's the whole mystery of how are they going to have their worlds collide in this new movie. I don't expect it to be great, but I'm at least more intrigued than Jurassic World Rebirth because at least there's this fascinating question
Yeah.
of
The
how are they going to
concept.
collide these two worlds, whereas Jurassic World Rebirth, it's all these new characters they're going to introduce who I've never met before.
Yeah, I see what you mean. And I think Jurassic World's gonna do terrible at the box office. It's gonna do horrible. But that about wraps up this episode of the Everything Podcast. Thank you guys so much for watching. And Will, thanks for joining me
Of
as
course.
always. And we'll see you next time for a Cobra Kai dedicated episode.